Welcome into Pucks and Prosecco, presented by Accurate America. In just a moment, I'll be joined by Chloe Theil, and we'll be crowning our own winners of the NHL Awards as we see them.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Hey! Meghan Angley, joined by Chloe Theil for another episode of Pucks and Prosecco. As I teased a second ago, it's an NHL Awards show, and we're treating it similar to the real NHL Awards. We decided these will be based on regular season performances, but today we'll be casting our own ballots, and from there we'll decide who our winners for the NHL Awards are, based on just us two.
Nobody else gets to decide, and then these are actually the real results.
Yeah.
So I would like to see how everybody else who's watching this votes on these kind of things too.
Yes.
Because we just talked about it was way more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
Yes.
Like, you already kind of have an outline of who potentially is going to win, but it was really, really hard to kind of put them in order.
It's very hard. So I cast a real ballot earlier the year for the real awards, and it was hard coming up with my people for that. And going back, I even already kind of feel like I disagree with some of my own choices, maybe some of the placements, because as you're going through it, you have the idea of who the top guys are for each award, but then you want to just double check, is there anybody that should be in this conversation that maybe isn't being considered or talked about enough? And so you just want to backtrack a little bit, and that's where it starts to get hard. You start to get overwhelmed with choices, and we'll get into it with some of these that maybe aren't as clear cut as the others.
So I think it's so interesting that you guys get to vote on these things, that you have such a big part in the outcome of these awards. Are you allowed to talk on kind of the process you go through? Are you allowed to even say who you voted for?
As far as I know, yes. That's a great question, and I probably should double check on that. But we talk about it as we're casting our votes, like around the Avs media room. We've got a deadline, so we all start talking about our ballots. So it can't invalidate them because we all do it. We all talk about them. But that is kind of the process. You run it by some of your colleagues, like, hey, who are you voting for, Selke? And then you just make your own choice, because there's usually some disagreement too. I like to use some analytics, but I also try to trust my instinct and what I've observed around the league, because I can't watch every hockey game, and that's what makes it a little challenging. So I do want to recall then who has stood out, because they have stood out for a reason, especially when it is hard to tune into as many games as you can. And so there's a couple. So like Masterton is one that we voted on a little ahead of this, and it's tough because that one was a regular season one, and Landeskog was the Colorado chapter vote, obviously, but there was controversy around that. And then Jack Adams is the other one that we don't get to vote on. That's like broadcast personalities. So yeah, the professional hockey writers don't vote for that one. And I almost wish, not even us, I don't think we need to be the ones who vote for it, but I wish other coaches could vote for it, who they would nominate for the best coach. I think that'd carry more weight. Jack Adams seems flawed in how it's voted upon right now. And not just because Jared Bednar hasn't won it.
So is it what you were saying, like you kind of have a Colorado chapter? So does that mean you all put your votes in and then that counts as one vote for Colorado? Or is it each of your votes count?
Uniquely.
They do?
Uniquely. Yeah, so like for Masterton, it all counted for one. Basically, like our total votes for our Masterton nominee became one.
Okay.
And then for the rest of the awards, though, it just is totaled across the league. And so that's where it gets weird, is different markets have more members of the professional hockey writers. And so they represent their market a little bit more. So there's a lot of East representation. And that's where some of these awards start to slant a little bit.
It's like voting
times
in an actual election.
It's
you
like
get electoral votes
it's
and
like voting
the
in an
East.
election.
Yeah.
That is sad because the West has produced some really competitive teams.
Yeah.
And so it is a little bit of a bummer that we
Mhm.
don't have more representation, more weight in the awards.
Yeah. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
Do you, when you all kind of chat about who you think you're going to pick, for the most part, do you all agree, or are there some crazy outliers?
I think there's usually outliers,
Yeah.
to be honest. And it's because everyone sees the game differently.
Mhm.
And everybody watches a lot of hockey. So there's just a big pool of information to draw upon for these awards. I guess we can start with the Hart Trophy.
Yeah.
And just dig into MVP, most valuable player to his team. I think this one's interesting.
Mhm.
I have Nathan MacKinnon as
So do I.
my number one.
Oh, number one. I don't have him as number one.
I know that was bold of
Love
me.
that.
That was really, really bold of me.
But I love it.
We'll get into it in a second. I have Connor Hellebuyck as my number 2
Mhm.
and Nikita Kucherov as my 3.
Interesting. Okay.
Who are your Hart nominees?
This one was really hard. So I had Hellebuyck as my number 1. I put Nathan MacKinnon / Nikita Kucherov as 2, and then I put Leon Draisaitl as my 3. So I kind of have 4, but it's our awards. We can do whatever we want.
Say it again. Sorry, I got distracted for a second.
I had Hellebuyck as 1,
Okay.
and then I combined MacKinnon and Kucherov as 2. Because I
Okay.
couldn't decide.
Okay.
And then Leon Draisaitl is my number 3.
I like that.
Okay.
No, I like that.
Okay. Your face.
You have to pick. No, I got confused by the Masterton comment from Alyssa.
Oh, what was it?
I'm not sure I understand it. Still, the Masterton was just awarded and no nominees were listed.
Oh, as in like they don't announce that there are finalists for it, and they just choose who it is. So then you don't, have a look at, well, here's 3 people that, really, really deserve this award, but we're only picking 1.
Yeah, like on the back end side, we get a list of all the cases to be made for Masterton nominees around the league.
Mhm.
When we vote for who should win it. So like we vote for who should represent our chapter in our chapter.
Mhm.
So that's where Gerard was in consideration, Landeskog obviously in consideration, Drouin in consideration,
Mhm.
Nichushkin in consideration. And then from there, a master list gets sent out to the writers with a case for why this person was voted by their chapter. So it's
Yeah.
a good paragraph as to why. And then from there, the PHWA members vote for their OGs, like their top 3 for the
Yeah.
Masterton. So I don't know if that changes anything
Mhm.
from this comment. But it was tripping me out. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
So Hart Trophy, you do have to pick between Kucherov and MacKinnon.
So it's hard for me because not that I want to discount Kucherov, but I just think he's been up for consideration for so many awards throughout the years that I don't know. It's really hard to compare those 2 players because I think they play a similar role on each of their teams. But if I had to pick between them, I would pick MacKinnon.
I would pick MacKinnon too.
Sorry, I'm biased.
No,
I am.
they're really close. Like both didn't play the full 82 games. Where I
Mhm.
felt sympathy for MacKinnon, and I'll go into this later, but Kucherov played 79, MacKinnon played 78.
Mhm.
And we know for MacKinnon that was because he went to 4 Nations and never got a rest period.
Yes.
And it really caught up to him at the end of the year. Kucherov didn't have that same conflict of interest. And
Mhm.
so in the Art Ross race, obviously it is Kucherov who comes away with the points lead
Yeah,
in the end.
And at the end.
But I
Yeah.
felt Nathan MacKinnon had a really good chance in that if he had played.
Mhm.
And I think the 4 Nations impacted his ability to finish with a few more points.
Mhm.
But what's interesting is when you look at the production from the top of the lineup, each with Tampa and with Colorado. Nathan MacKinnon, 116-point season. The next points getters on the Avs this year, it's Cale Makar with 92 points and Mikko Rantanen at 64. So there's a huge drop-off then in where contributions offensively came, and they certainly weren't from Nathan MacKinnon's line in an evenly distributed way, if
Right.
that makes sense. Like, obviously, Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon are on the ice together creating a lot. But when you look at Kucherov, finished with 121 points, the next point drop off, it's Point and Gensel, and those are his line mates. And then there's Hagel with 90 ahead of them, who's not their line mate technically. So what I'm saying is Kucherov had the support of his top line to get to 121 points, whereas Nathan MacKinnon's 116-point season was kind of a solo effort. He didn't have a solidified top line over the course of the regular season to help create. And so a lot of that creation, he was the engine of that. Whereas I think Kucherov had the support of really talented players in Jake Gensel, Braden Point. And so it's not to take away from the accomplishment of 121 points for Nikita Kucherov in 79 games. And he had some of the most game-winning goals in the league, and 8 power play goals, 9 power play goals for Nathan MacKinnon. And so these are still neck and neck, incredibly impactful players. But when you look at the storyline inside the Avs season with the struggle to get the top 6 going, obviously Jonathan Drouin being injured so much of the year impacted that, struggles with goaltending at the start of the year, it starts to add a little extra weight then to what Nathan MacKinnon did. 32 goals, 84 assists.
I completely agree with that. And I think that was a big part of why he won last year. When you were looking at the difference in the players, was what he was doing. Not that it's more impressive, it's just he was doing more with less, it seemed like. And that's why I thought that he was a clear winner. I thought it was the same for this year. Not only all the injury and stuff, but even Mikko getting traded and not really having like a core first line put together, even throughout the playoffs. I mean, that line got switched up every single game, it felt like. So I would put him as my third, and that's also a big reason why I had Hellebuyck as my first, because obviously he had a rough go there in the playoffs, but solely looking at the regular season, he is literally the reason that Winnipeg won the President's Trophy. And of course they had a lot of other factors that went into it, but goaltending was their driving force. And I think that's exactly what the definition of an MVP is.
It's so hard to get consistency in net and incredible goaltending. Like, you have goaltenders who can consistently be a good and steady presence, but to be as good as Hellebuyck is, as much as he is what makes him really important to the Winnipeg Jets in the regular season. Obviously, we know how things played out in the playoffs, so it's complicated. It has to really stink to, like, winning a Vezina and having that announced while you're in the playoffs, getting lit up. But for Hart Trophy, second high danger save percentage among goaltenders who've at least played 20 games. I always have to make a little qualifier. Top 5 in most saves made and a top 10 in high danger shots against. And so I think the Jets are a better team defensively than maybe those numbers are giving them credit for. But he faced a lot of quality chances over the span of the season and still finished with a .925 save percentage. So Connor Hellebuyck continues to be such an interesting part of the Winnipeg Jets, but you can't take away from his regular season performance and what it does for his team. All right. I feel like this one won't be as controversial, but let's look at Norris.
Who was your who else did you have in yours?
MacKinnon, Hellebuyck, Kucherov.
Okay.
Oh, did you want to talk about Draisaitl?
I mean, I'll touch on it. I think this one is difficult for me because I think the hardest part about giving him an MVP is that you're looking at a team that has him and Connor McDavid. And I think it's really difficult to differentiate between those two players when you're looking at an actual MVP, because both are such a significant part of the team that I mean, me personally, I think it's really hard to separate them when you're looking at it. I think those two are the driving force, and I wouldn't say that Draisaitl does. I don't want to say this in I wouldn't say that he does anything more than McDavid does. I think the two of them drive the team together. So it'd be hard to choose him as one MVP, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. I feel like there should be an award for the winger who supports his guy, like supports his line, or like a Mikko Rantanen to MacKinnon.
Yeah.
In this case, a Draisaitl to a McDavid. They are the engine for the top six. Like
right.
he makes it so dangerous for Edmonton that you're right. I don't know if he gets overshadowed by a player like McDavid, and they're kind of the 1-2 punch down the middle in Edmonton, which is a little different, but in the same way that we talk about Sakic and Forsberg, it's significant, and you know, Forsberg commands a lot of respect in that conversation. Draisaitl should too.
Yeah, I mean, 131 points is incredibly impressive, and also signing an extension with the Oilers, getting paid $14 million a year, I think is also very impressive.
Well compensated for what he does for Edmonton.
He is.
All right, let's look at the Norris Trophy. This is for the top defenseman with the greatest all-around ability. Chloe, who's your number one?
Cale Makar. Are we surprised?
A little bit.
Really?
No. Cale Makar.
Cale Makar.
All right, sell me on Cale Makar.
See, this is every time we talk about Cale, there's nothing to say. He's just the best defenseman in the NHL, I think, especially right now. I think it's pretty obvious that stats-wise, spoiler, my second is Werenski, my third is Quinn Hughes. Stats-wise, he's above both of them, but you just have to look at him from a team perspective and what he brings. I mean, you just talked about how Nathan MacKinnon was number one, and right there, not next to him, but second is Cale, and that's an incredible thing to have in a defenseman on your team. So he's my number one.
He's my number one too.
Oh my god!
30-goal season for Cale Makar. So the production was yet another high point for Cale Makar that kind of sneaks up on you at the end of the year. Werenski obviously was in that race pretty competitively for much of this season, but Cale Makar ran away with it. And I always feel a caution about talking about the production in Cale Makar's game and taking away from just how good he is defensively for the Avs. I don't want people to lose sight of that either. I was reading discourse online about how good Jacob Slavin has been for Carolina, and I love Jacob Slavin, and I want to make an award for, because this is for greatest all-around ability. It's supposed to capture defensive ability in it as well, as awards go, but it does seem to favor offensive ability a lot of the time, and I'll get to that in a second. So as far as Cale goes, I do think he deserves more credit defensively than he gets. He's so difficult to play against. There's a reason why in the Dallas series, Pete DeBoer is talking about a pre-scout that is dependent on shutting down Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon. He's such a threat to other teams. That's why he finishes top fives in penalties drawn, because he's difficult to contain. The production, most power play goals, the possession numbers, Corsi 4, 56.2%, 5v5 on the year, created 39 rebounds, which was among tops in the league. So that's all production stuff. I don't have any advanced stats for the defensive side of his game, but he's leaned on heavily for the penalty kill. It's a tough situation. Like, you don't necessarily want to see him with some of the ice time he finishes with at the end of the night. You worry about the toll it takes on his body, but he eats up big minutes, takes on top matchups, and is relied on heavily on the penalty kill for a reason. I don't want to take away from that. So he's my number one, but Werenski is my number two. And honestly, digging into the numbers for Werenski, he had an insane year. He was first in rebound opportunities created with 22 rush attempts at 5v5, which was ahead of Cale Makar off the rush in the regular season. 52.48 possession numbers, and first in expected goals for in the league. And so the offensive opportunities for Zach Werenski, even though he finishes, with 82 points, 23 goals, it's a little lesser than in the total number compared to Makar. He was on the ice for some more scoring chances against than Makar, but I think he's adjusting to the place that Makar has been in taking on the top matchups, because Werenski has dealt with injury through this point. Like, his seasons have been interrupted. And so I still think of him as kind of a young player. And this felt like the first full season where we've gotten to really see what he's capable of. And so I expect good things from him because he was leaned on heavily both ends of the ice, and he really delivered offensively.
Mm-hmm. And also, when you're looking at the team that he's a part of, the Blue Jackets are still rebuilding. And
Totally.
to remain consistent on a team like that is incredibly impressive. But I think it's a very interesting point that, and it's something I think about too, is I feel like a lot of times when we look at defensemen, we look at their production and not so much their defensive capabilities. So it is really hard when you're looking at Cale with his production, but actually I'm not going to spoil it because it brings me to one of my awards.
I have bad ADHD, and so where I was starting with the Jacob Slavin conversation too, around the discourse that I saw online about Slavin being this underrated defenseman in these playoffs, and I fully agree with that. And some people were weighing in, he's not even the best defenseman in this series, and then other people were saying Cale Makar was the best defenseman in these playoffs, which is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
I think they just meant he's the best defenseman that has appeared in the playoffs, not necessarily that his individual performance was the best. But it shows how much respect Cale Makar commands, because this isn't an Avs fan that is weighing in on this and saying it. And so there's a lot of respect. Look, there's weird discourse, Adam Fox, Cale Makar, like there's weird discourse where people do diminish Cale Makar's abilities. That definitely still happens. But when it comes to how other teams' fan bases talk about defensemen, I think Cale Makar is highly favored for a reason. And it was something I wanted to shout out, that even though there can be debate, a Slavin, best defenseman in these playoffs, Thomas Harley, Cale Makar still commands a lot of respect, even with a kind of shaky, not the best performance, not the classic Cale Makar performance, which by itself means something. The fact that there is a classic Cale Makar performance that we can even reference for what we expect in the playoffs is why he's special, why he's so highly ranked in the Norris conversation every year. I had Quinn Hughes as my third too. I had a tough one with this though, because this is where I would have entertained a Jacob Slavin maybe in my 3 spot. I still look at the finish for Quinn Hughes on the year, and I think this was a tougher year for the Vancouver Canucks. So he's third in scoring among defensemen, and that's still not nothing. I look at the state of things with Vancouver, and they've just had a lot of drama around the team with GT Miller and Pettersson, and now they're moving on from their coach. And I want to give him some credit then for the year that he still had. This is a really great defenseman, which is why I just think we need to create a separate award that better captures what a player like Slavin does well defensively in his own end. Because the tough thing about analytics, and it's often used for this award, as you look at points totals and you look at some of these other numbers that we've mentioned, is they all have an offensive slant. And not necessarily a bad thing, still a good tool of measure, but that's where a player like Slavin doesn't have, the same metric that you can point to for his value, but it sure is high. You look at his 4 Nations performance alone and his impact for Team USA, and Slavin definitely deserves some more flowers. I just feel like we need to create a new bouquet.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Quinn, this was a hard one just because I think you guys had Dave McCarthy on last week.
Yeah.
And he was talking a lot about what he thinks about Austin Matthews being their captain and how maybe they should have waited a little bit and kind of just let him do his thing and not try to put him in the position of being a captain and producing for his team. I think that's kind of similar with Quinn Hughes. I think he's so young, and making him the captain of this team and then, trying to lead a team that didn't even make it to the playoffs this year, I think it really takes a toll on who you are as a player. And I think he's like Austin Matthews in that I think that if he wasn't captain and you just let him do what he needs to do as a defenseman, that he would not look better, but just I think it would look better statistically.
No, I see the similarities for sure with Quinn Hughes, especially in seeing how the JT Miller-Pettersson drama was handled this year. He was paraded in front of media to answer for it too.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. He's their captain, but you could see it wasn't his strong suit either. And I don't blame him for not being able to work through the drama of what that was. It should not have been the drama that it was. And so I can't help but wonder if removed from that, what the individual performance would look like, because it was already very good. So it also points to a need for a really strong leader on Vancouver, because honestly, that came up in the JT Miller drama too, that they just needed some other veteran players to step in and be the ones to address JT Miller when he was getting out of hand, because he was at times. His emotions were boiling over, and it wasn't as if Pettersson was blameless in that either, but there was some leadership that was needed there. And don't fault Quinn Hughes for not being the answer, but I think it takes away when there's a little bit of a soap opera around the season.
Imagine how successful everybody in the world would be if they didn't have any drama in their lives.
Yeah. I would be so good at my job if there was no drama. Yeah, I'd be so good at life if there was no drama ever.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to the Calder Trophy. This is for the most proficient in his first year of competition, and there's real qualifiers for the rookies too. So it's not as if they made their NHL debut for all of these players, but they fall within the threshold of being rookies. So I'll say my number one was Macklin Celebrini.
Me too.
I feel that's not controversial.
Nope.
Cool. He is going to be special. I loved his Worlds performance. And I think for such a young player on a struggling team, his play driving metrics are incredibly impressive. And to have the production that he has had on one of the worst expected goals for teams, when your team doesn't play a possession-minded game, it is hard then. You have to really force and create your opportunities. And I think that Macklin Celebrini has a lot more Nathan MacKinnon in him than he's gotten credit for through this point. Top rookie scorer. I'm excited to see the next season of Macklin Celebrini.
I think when you're drafted first overall, it puts a lot of pressure on you as a player to succeed in your first year. I think he handled the pressure really, really well, and I totally agree. Doing what he did for a team that ended last place in the NHL is pretty special for him. So me too. I'm excited for him.
So among the top in rookie scoring, but not the number one points producer among rookies, the number one is Lane Hutson out of Montreal. That's who I voted for number two.
Me too.
Wonderful. So he finished with the points high of everyone with 66 points of all rookies, that is, through 60 assists, 6 goals, quarterbacking that power play for Montreal, and just established himself as a strong puck mover that they could lean on. Really impressive season from him.
I'm just looking at the playoffs. He had 5 assists in 5 games in the playoffs. That's very impressive too. But this is the kind of stuff that, makes me wonder what they're looking at for these awards, because him being first overall in scoring, but Celebrini likely being the pick. I wonder what else they're looking at to make that consideration.
Well, yeah, because not in my list is Matvei Michkov, and
Mhm.
he had 26 goals, which was the most among rookies. And so, a pure goal scorer isn't nothing, and tied with Macklin Celebrini for 63 points. But I gave someone else a shout out for my third place slot for Calder, and that is Dustin Wolf
Me
out of the
too.
Calgary Flames. Okay.
I actually have two because I
I
wanted
love this.
I wanted to I just wanted to give Will Smith a shout out, so I put him in there as
Okay,
like
love. You
he
can't
would be
do not
fourth to
separate
me.
Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith.
Right, they have to be together. That's why I did it.
Package deal.
Yeah.
That's not a bad shout out at all. So we got Will Smith representation in the house.
Yep.
Dustin Wolf representation in the house.
Mhm.
53 starts on a Calgary team with kind of a middle of the pack defense and a 1910 save percentage. Just a really great year from Dustin Wolf, and I think he's been ready for this moment, and it's been a matter of Calgary giving him the starter's net, and he fully assumed it this year and handled it very well.
Mhm. And being a goaltender in your first season, I feel like is extremely difficult.
Yeah, it's always such a weird trajectory because it's like you'll get NHL starts sprinkled in before you finally get to start in the
Right.
NHL. And so we've seen Dustin Wolf before, but to have that go from 0 to 100
Mhm.
is a lot to handle. And another, goalie, not a rookie, but like Lukas Dostal, that's why his trajectory to being kind of considered a starter in Anaheim. Like Gibson was still in that conversation, just dealt with a burst appendix throughout the year.
Oh.
Yeah, so he missed a lot of time, and Dostal really stepped up. So it's just weird with goalies the way in which they fully become starters, even though you've been seeing them around the league for a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's because it's very hard to do.
Mhm.
It's hard to take the net away from a more established starter.
Yeah.
That's where our guy Sheloff's up with Abbotsford. He had the net taken
Our
from him.
guy.
Yeah, I'm so mad at him. Kevin Lankinen stole the net from him in Vancouver this year, and so he's fighting for it back because, Lankinen's the more veteran goaltender. We've got this young goaltender
Yeah.
with good numbers trying to sneak up behind him, and Dustin Wolf was in that position too previously and finally gets his opportunity.
I think it's always impressive when a goaltender wins an award like this, so I like that there's some representation. What the
For goalie?
representation for goaltenders for this. So I would like to see him win. I think that would be fun.
One reason too, one big reason he came in my list is there is a campaign for Dustin Wolf. I got a text message. So Calgary, I don't know how I got on a list, but they sent out a full campaign, like just pitching their case for why we should vote for Dustin Wolf for Calder. And I kind of love that. And I hope more teams care about their babies and send text campaigns to other media members just to present their case.
They just got everybody's contact.
Yeah. And I don't think it's that
Good for
weird because we're on some kind of list, like an NHL media directory that teams have access to. And so in the playoffs, I'm automatically signed up for Dallas Stars alerts.
Right.
And so it's not that weird that it happened. I just don't see that. And I'm wondering now why I haven't seen more pitches. Like, pitch me on your guys.
Yeah.
So.
Well, did it make you want to vote for him?
It did, but I also already love Dustin Wolf. So.
Oh, well then, there we go.
Yeah, it was effective though to put him front of mind. I bet this one was hard for Lady Bing.
I only have one.
That's okay. This is a weird one.
This was hard.
I think we just need to reevaluate this award because I like it as a concept, but it's just really hard to look around the league and pluck out a guy. One, hockey is filled with so many nice guys, so that makes it a little bit tricky. Then how does he really stand out and separate from his peers on the ice, specifically in terms of sportsmanship and gentlemanly conduct, combined with a high standard of playing ability? So I love what this award should be. It just feels a little tricky to vote on it with so many options.
Yeah.
I still have 3, but it just feels like there could have been 20 guys that I'm thinking about for this type of award. Who's your number 1?
Anze Kopitar is my number 1.
That's a great number one.
Yeah. And so the reason that this was so difficult for me was when I was reading about the award, a lot of times the player that gets selected is the player that contributes significantly but also has the least amount of penalty minutes.
Yes.
And to me, I wouldn't directly correlate penalty minutes with sportsmanship.
Right.
Like, I don't think drawing a penalty means that you're any less gentlemanly.
No, if anything, like, I don't know. I kind of want to see a moderate amount of penalty minutes because I know you're trying.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, the absence of penalty minutes doesn't mean someone isn't trying, and just like you're playing with a little edge, and sometimes you're going to push the envelope a little. You're going to toe that line, and you might step over it a little bit here and there. I mean, like a Gabriel Landeskog,
right?
Like very respected by his peers.
If you're fighting, sure. I mean that could be a completely different thing, but like a tripping penalty, sometimes you do that on accident. High stick penalty, like I don't think that means that you're unsportsmanlike.
I don't think so either. I think being disciplined is good, and so if you're a highly skilled player, really productive, like high standard of playing ability, and disciplined, and you're not going to the box a lot, that's really good. That is.
You're really good.
But I don't know, there's just something in the same way that I don't like plus minus as a stat. I just don't put a lot of stock in penalty minutes or a lack thereof. I'll definitely notice if you have an insane amount of penalty minutes, and I'll remember the timeliness of those penalties more than anything. But the absence of the penalty minutes probably won't stand out.
See, this is interesting because I didn't even look at, I was just kind of reading about why they chose. I didn't even look at how many penalty minutes he had. He had 4. The entire regular season.
That is so gentlemanly of him.
In 81 games.
All right, I actually don't know my guy's penalty minutes. As you can tell, I've been very anti-Pims.
Anti-Pims.
Let's see here.
But this is also interesting because I'm looking through all of his stats. Yeah, for the most part, they're low. I mean, last year it was 22. The year before that, it was 4 again. But then he also has seasons where 24, 22, 32, 24, 16, 28, 20, 30. Is he getting more sportsman-likey?
Is
he?
He's becoming more of a gentleman.
He's more of a gentleman. Did he have kids somewhere in here?
Is this Kopitar still?
Yeah.
I don't know. He's an older man. Does he get babies? I think he does.
Kopitar.
I don't know.
Children. Nobody worry, I'm looking up who his
Best
children
Dad
are right
Award.
now.
Yeah, Lady
Best
Bing
Dad
Trophy became Best Dad Award.
Born on March 14th, 2015.
Oh, okay.
Is there a correlation between, you know what? No, there's really not.
No, there's not.
There's not. So I don't know what it is. I was thinking maybe him having a daughter would make him more gentlemanly, but I don't know what it is.
He's really likable, so it's not a bad selection at all.
Yeah, and it's obviously not completely just based off of penalty minutes. There's other things that make him sportsmanlike, but that is one of the main things that they look at.
Yeah, I think you've got a good guy in that one. Oh, these are weird. I'm in NHL stats and it's showing me some weird team name options. But anyways, my guy for number 1 is Jacob Slavin. 8 penalty minutes.
Good. Okay. Interesting.
I know. I'm a little surprised to see that, to be honest with you. But really, just everything I know about this player away from the ice, just a really upstanding guy and doesn't cause issues on the ice, just plays a really solid all-around defensive game. So, yeah, I'm giving him a nod for Lady Bing. Who's your number 2? Oh, did you just have one?
I just had him.
Okay, yeah. I go to bat for Braden Point. This is kind of a random one for me.
Yeah.
This is a random one for me. And it's just because he carries himself extremely well. I've interviewed him before, like when Tampa's in town, and he's just a really kind person. I know that sounds very, very silly. I'm going to pull up his penalty minutes here. Wow, 7. There might be a correlation. There might be a correlation here. One of the lowest on the team for Tampa, and just the way that he conducts himself. Really, really nice guy.
Yeah, if I had to pick, I was going to put him at number 2, but from basing it off of anything except penalty minutes, I didn't want to put anybody else on the list.
I gave Devon Toews my third spot.
Okay, this is a good one. This is a really good one.
He gets voted as a finalist in Lady Bing a lot too.
Yes.
So, these guys, I've seen point up there in the
Says
number of
penalty
votes
minutes.
before, so I'm not totally crazy for thinking this.
It's because he
and
has too many
Slavin,
penalty minutes this year.
definitely. But Taves is a player who really isn't about the drama in game a lot of the
Mhm.
time. Just a high IQ player who wants to play the game the smart way and isn't trying to be naughty.
26
That's a
penalty
little,
minutes this year.
that's a little high, Taves.
Mhm.
Devon? I don't know what that's about,
Was
but
he
he's...
a finalist last year?
I want to say he was. I don't have it in front of me, so don't quote me on that. Cale Makar has come up high in Lady Bing voting as
Mhm.
well. And he makes a lot of sense for it too, just in how he carries himself. I'm sure Seattle would feel a little differently about this, but Devon Toews, to me, is the defensive conscience of the team too. And I think that kind of presence on the back end is where that high standard of playing ability comes into play. You just don't really see him in the fray of drama and net
Yeah.
front skirmishes, but he's not necessarily an easy guy to play against either. So that's why I like to give Devon Toews a nod for Lady Bing.
Yeah, and everything he does off the ice and with the Freedom Service dogs and all of that kind of stuff. I think that's a
Yes.
big part of why he has been a finalist in the past.
It definitely is. And there's another award for community involvement. And I'm blanking on the name. King Clancy.
Oh, it is King Clancy, isn't it? Yeah.
All right, this one's tricky for me, and it's the Selke. Forward with the most skill in a defensive component. And this is oftentimes awarded to a center because of the defensive responsibility down the middle. Who do you have for number one?
Okay, I have Alexander Barkov as my number one.
Me too.
Sam Reinhart is my number two.
He's my number two too. This felt so controversial.
I only put two, and those are my two.
So this is where I had four because I couldn't decide.
Oh wow. Okay.
Anthony Cirelli for my three.
Yeah.
But kind of in the same way that you had a tie, I would also put Nico Hischier for consideration. He didn't make my ballot voting, and I felt some remorse after the fact in looking at the year that Hischier had. So Barkov, I don't feel like we have to make a huge case for because he continues to be, after Bergeron's playing career, just premier down the middle, premier centerman in this league. Where Reinhart's interesting is he obviously has played on the wing spot at times. And so maybe people don't feel he's as true a center as some of the other players in this conversation. But he still has incredible defensive analytics, and I don't want to take away from that. The lowest expected goals against of any center. He's technically listed as that in natural stat trick with a minimum of 1,000 minutes played, which I know sounds crazy, but 5v5 at the end of the year, you're going to filter that down to centermen who played top line minutes, top 6 minutes, and had some top matchups then. So to have the lowest expected goals against in that ranking is significant. Lowest high danger chances against, second most shorthanded goals, just a random stat, but the penalty kill value of a player like Reinhart is worth noting.
That was my number one point.
And a Corsi for percentage 58.39 at 5v5. So just a really well-rounded player with a defensive prowess that I wanted to shout out. And this really upset New Jersey Devils fans that Florida had two players get consideration for the award this year. Or Anthony Cirelli. I just really like this player, but he is so good down the middle. Most D-zone starts, second most high danger chances against, but the fewest high danger goals against at 5v5. And he was good in the dot, a true centerman for Tampa Bay. I think he's really well-rounded and a little bit underrated in that sense. And then where Nico Hischier got some credit for me, he had the second most face-offs won in the league. And so he, in total, finished with not only the most face-off wins, but a 55.5 at the dot. Fourth most D-zone face-off wins and the ninth fewest goals against, while still having a 35-goal season. So he deserved maybe more credit and consideration in the Selke conversation than he got. It's just the year that Florida had. Sam Reinhart defensively very good for them, but those would be my guys that I think deserve some love.
Barkov and Reinhart would be the 5th set of teammates to be Selke finalists. And I saw that earlier, and I thought that was very impressive. So
I like that.
I know. But when I was looking at Sam Reinhart, my number one thing with putting him 2 was that he had 5 shorthanded goals the 2nd year in a row.
He's
Like,
a little.
that's crazy.
That's interesting. He's aggressive on the kill, but obviously
Yeah.
it works for him.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, I think all of them deserve to win, and maybe they should just like
We're
the
proud
crown,
of everybody.
like the Crown and Mean Girls, where they break it up and give it to everybody. They should
Yeah.
just give it to everybody.
That's so true. And we get a little piece.
And we get a piece. Well, these are
We're
our
part of
awards
it.
that Gary Bettman's going to listen to.
So we're
These are
just gonna
final.
take the crown, and nobody else is gonna win.
And nobody else is going to win. Yeah, I
Yep.
don't know if we made that clear, but these are the final results.
Right. So everybody just, even though we didn't really, did we kind of select who's actually
No, we
winning?
really didn't, because we had like
kinda just gave our
7
number
counter
1,
votes.
2, 3, 4. Yeah, we were like Celebrini,
And Will Smith together.
but also Dustin Wolf would love to see him win. So
Dustin Wolf.
I don't know.
Mitchkov wasn't even like, he's in our conversation, but also barely. And then
Yeah.
Lane Hudson love. I don't know. We got carried away, but that's why we get to make the rules.
That's so true. We don't have to choose.
We don't have to choose.
We choose everyone.
I'm cracking up. We're approaching an hour. Okay. Don't worry. We're winding this down. We'll get to our all-star team in just a second, and some of our own awards in just a moment. But before we do, I want to remind everyone about our friends over at Accurate America. You never know when and where the hail will hit when the summer storms come. And the last thing you want is to be caught scrambling when it does. So make the call before the storm and call Accurate America. They'll partner with you on navigating insurance and provide quick, professional, and knowledgeable service using the latest technology and 3D modeling. And their work is guaranteed as long as you own your home. Don't scramble at the last minute. Call Accurate America at 303-900-ROOF before the storm. All right. And the calm before the storm, we'll do our NHL All-Star team. That doesn't feel... This is going to be easy, right?
I don't know.
And the voting for some
I
of this
kinda
has
struggled.
more slots allotted. I just didn't want to make us come up with like 6 guys for each
I
category.
could have, though.
Maybe I just made it harder then by only letting
You
us do
kinda
3. Uh-oh.
No, that's okay.
All right. Who are your top 3 centers in the league?
See, this is hard because I don't want to say that these are clear 1, 2, 3. I just want to say like these are 3.
Whoever Chloe doesn't say, she thinks they suck.
Yeah, basically. Okay, I had McDavid, MacKinnon, and Draisaitl.
Okay. I gave Barkov some love, but I have MacKinnon, McDavid.
Okay.
So Chloe hates Sasha
Obviously,
Barkov.
I hate Barkov and I love Draisaitl. He's been in
Chloe
2 of
loves
my mentions.
Draisaitl so much.
Yep.
All right, for right wing.
I don't know
Did it
if
get
I agree
harder?
with these.
Okay,
Okay, Kucherov is my 1.
same.
Mikko is my 2nd.
I didn't put Miko in mine. I think I was being petty, you guys. I think I was being petty.
I don't know.
I put Vanna Chushkin.
You actually did?
I did. I actually
Oh my
did.
god! As your 3?
I know
As your
as
2?
my 2, which is maybe even crazier because he did miss a lot of time this last year. But his point per game production in season
No,
when
I
he
love it.
does play
Yeah.
is really impactful.
Mhm.
Then Mitch Marner.
Okay,
And-
so yes.
Jesse's not here. This is a safe place. I'm not crazy about this Mitch Marner to
Right,
Colorado
right.
business, but I want to give him some credit. He's an elite winger in this league and had a 27 goal, 102
Mhm.
point season. This is a 100-point player. I'm not going to leave him off my list. Okay.
I put him / Nylander
I like Nylander.
because I couldn't choose between them.
Yeah, Wheelie
So,
Styles.
Yeah.
Well, that's perfect. Then we have 4 centers and we
Oh,
have
good. Great.
5 right wings. This is perfect. Okay. For our left wing.
Are you starting? You want me to start?
I'll start this one.
Okay.
I have Kyle Connor for my number 1 left
Okay.
wing. I've liked him for some time, but he has a new career high in points the end of this year. 41 goal season, kind of crazy to me. 97 points right on the doorstep of his own 100-point season, but I want to give him some love for my top left wing.
I put Kachuk as my number 1.
Oh, that's really good.
I put Kyle Connor as my second.
Okay, I like that. I feel a little funny about my number 2.
Who's your
Well, it's a tie, which I also have a 3, so I have a two-way tie for number 2,
So
and then
we
my
have
3.
20 left wings.
And at left wing, we have 7 different guys. All right, so I have Jason Robertson, which feels tough
Okay.
because the year that he had actually was very normal. It was very regular for him. I've seen better seasons from Jason Robertson. To me, though, he's a young player who is still ascending in this league.
Yeah.
And then I had Brendan Hagel, tied with him. I
Okay.
think the impact that he has on Tampa, kind of I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Kucherov, where you've got Point and Gensel as kind of the 3-4, but that 2 in terms of production is Hagel. He's a really productive winger for a very good team. So he got some love. And then Ovi was my third.
Okay, Ovi was my third. I was scared you weren't going to say that, but I have another one that I want to put in there.
Perfect.
Can we put Gabe in there?
Ooh, what? Yes, we can because we make the rules.
Like, technically, if we're looking, I mean, this is technically like this year All-Stars, he wouldn't be a part of the conversation, but I think considering playoffs, I think he should be.
No,
Maybe.
I think so too. I love it. And
good.
there aren't really any rules anymore.
Wonderful.
All right, who's our all-star defense? Who do you think should be here?
Cale Makar,
Perfect.
Zach Werenski,
Perfect.
Quinn Hughes. So the 3 that were nominated for Norris. I struggled with my 4th, but oh God, I don't know. Now I want to change my mind and make it Jacob Slavin.
Jacob Slavin's my number 2.
Okay.
I give him so much love in this, but this is where I included some numbers for his year that he had, but his high danger chances for was 56.83%. First in the league in takeaways. It's just stripping the puck from everybody. 6 overall, Corsi for percentage at 5v5. And yeah, that high danger Corsi for percentage I listed off was 9th ahead of Marker. Hello? Makar. And Werenski.
Cale Makar.
Cale Makar. Anyways, Cale was my number 1. 6 in takeaways
Perfect.
in the league. I had Devon Taves also in my list, and then Zach Werenski as well.
So what's that? What are we at? 8?
Yeah, and I ditched Quinn Hughes, and I just made up a hockey player named Marker.
Get Quinn Hughes out. Get Marker in there.
Yeah, I think actually Marker should be captain of the Vancouver Canucks. That would have helped them so much. Okay, let's move on to our goalies.
Okay, Hellebuyck is my number 1.
He's my number 1 too. The
Who's
best
your number
goals
2?
saved above expected. I didn't mention that. Second best high danger save percentage. Minimum 30 games played. At Vasilevsky.
Okay.
Who did you have? Dustin Wolf?
I put Dustin Wolf. No, I didn't. I put Darcy Kemper in there.
Darcy Kemper had a good year.
I love him. And
I think
he had a great year.
In my actual ballot, I think he made my actual ballot, or I was torn between Mackenzie Blackwood.
I really thought about putting Blackwood in there and I didn't.
I put him as my 3. I put Blackwood as my 3.
I thought we only got 2.
Did I?
Okay, my 3rd is Mackenzie Blackwood. I thought we could only pick. We don't even have Prosecco today.
Prosecco.
Oh gosh.
Mackenzie Blackwood had the 6th best goal saved above expected.
Yeah.
It's really great.
Really, really good.
Super good. Darcy Kemper. I thought he had such a good year with LA that's what I thought was going to be the thing to get them past that Edmonton series, because I thought that's what was missing from it and before. And so that, yeah, just a bummer. Which leads us to our awards of our own. I actually stuck with this. I included it as an example, but I actually just made it into an award, which is most deserving of a better fate.
Mm-hmm. I love this
And
one.
yeah, this is a player that earned a happy ending, like should have had it, but didn't necessarily get it.
Mhm.
And this deviated a little outside of the regular season in how I thought about who should win it. Like I gave Mark Scheifele a nod for
Aw.
playing in Game 6, scoring
I love
a
that.
goal, and then unfortunately the penalty late in that game is ultimately what cost him. And this is a player who had the most game-winning goals in the regular season, obviously the Central Division champs. I just thought he individually deserved a better fate, at least a Game 7. I think he deserved
Oh,
a Game
yeah.
7. That really played at my heartstrings. I gave Marc-Andre Fleury a nod,
good.
and this is a little more related to Worlds in going for the triple gold club ahead of his real retirement. He already had the Olympic gold and 3 Stanley Cups, and he just needed this, and I'm sad that he wasn't able to get across the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
I gave Gabriel Landeskog also
Great.
like my 3rd place slot, just because he finally makes his comeback, and his team is out in the first round. I have to imagine he just wanted to keep playing hockey the minute he got back, and so for that to be cut short, it made me so sad. And Nathan
makes me
MacKinnon,
sad.
I mean, there's like 20 guys that I nominated for this
Perfect.
award.
Let's go
Nathan
through 'em all.
MacKinnon deserved a better fate. With respect to the Art Ross Trophy race, just because I want to know what it would have looked like if he did play in the final games of the season if rest wasn't a concern, because I would default to rest every time. Be like, yeah, absolutely. You went to 4 Nations, your body's a little worn down, take the rest. But also, could you have won this if you didn't need the rest?
Yeah.
I don't know. And then Jonathan Drouin, who missed 39
Of
games
course.
this season with a near point per game pace when he did play. I thought he deserved a better fate.
Don't forget about Ross Colton. Throw him in there.
Ross Colton.
Miles Wood. Why
Ross
not?
Colton, Miles Wood. Oh my gosh, you're so right, Chloe. You're so right.
Exactly. Okay, my first one was what we were talking about earlier with the Norris. I would like to change the Norris to just make it about just defensive capabilities and not all around ability.
Yep.
And
Yes.
just like the Selke,
Let's lock in.
I want to change it so that it's called the Blue Line to the Net Award. Period. And it's a defenseman who excels in offensive contributions, playmaking, and goal scoring while still maintaining solid defensive responsibilities. Cale Makar.
I like that. The Cale Makar Award.
Why not?
I think he could have an
We
award
changed
named
that.
after him one day.
One day for sure. And this is what it is.
That's perfect.
Perfect. That's all I have.
All right. I wanted to make this one on the fly, and it's the most underrated award. Feel like we can come up with a better name than that, but I gave Artturi Lehkonen a number 1 spot. He had a 27-goal season and made a new career high for himself. So Artturi Lehkonen got some love. I gave Tage Thompson some love.
Okay.
4th in the league in goals with 44 goals is kind of insane given the state of Buffalo this past year. And then obviously a big game player in Worlds. And another player is Clayton Keller. 17th in points, 100 goals among players on playoff teams. If you go back like 2022 through now, he scored 100 goals. And you look at all the leading points getters over the past couple seasons, and they're all on these playoff teams. And so Clayton Keller has been a consistent producer for Arizona/Utah. And I think he deserves some credit for that. Kind of similar to the credit I'm giving Tage Thompson, just playing on a struggling team and still being a difference maker.
Yeah.
And then Devon Toews, I gave most underrated award. And it's because of what he does in his own end. He's such a high IQ player that I think when you're on a team with a Cale Makar, sometimes that can get overshadowed.
It's so obvious that everything that I was talking about with these awards, I just changed into separate awards. Because for the Lady Byng, I was saying it shouldn't be about least amount of penalty minutes. So this award is the Penalty King Award. And it's given to the player
With the
who
most?
spent the most minutes in the box, which was Nikita Zadorov with 145 minutes this season.
sir?
145. And then a little shout out to Brad Marchand because he, right now in the playoffs, 46 minutes already. Yep.
That's almost a full hockey game just spent in the box.
Yep.
Wow.
Right? It should be an award.
Wow. Yeah.
It's honestly impressive to be in the box that much.
No, it really is. They should have to, as part of the award, stay overnight in a penalty box.
Every minute that they spent in the box, they have to spend in a box in real life.
Congratulations, you're the winner.
Congrats.
You have to stay inside
No
the
food,
penalty
no
box
water.
with no it's prison. That's not how prison works. They feed
And you only get a little teeny tiny window and a small little toilet in the corner.
and one phone call.
No, one phone call a month. How many days is wait,
This got so crazy.
how many minutes are in a day?
I don't know the
Shoot.
answer to that.
I should know.
I should know.
1,440. Why did I think that it said 140? See,
There's
but
definitely at least 140.
you're only spending like he was only in the box for 145 minutes. Like that's not that long. In there for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Easy.
That's
you don't
a-
need a phone call.
You don't even need a phone call, but you
Exactly.
don't get to use your phone
You
while
don't
you're in the penalty box.
You just have to sit and stare at the wall. And you're going in the burn book. No,
And
just
you're
kidding.
going in the
This is supposed to be
burn
an
book.
award, and now it's just changed
Now it's a
into
punishment.
a punishment. So
Well, it's a high honor. Well, that's all we have for our NHL awards. Let us know what awards you would add or change, or who you would vote differently.
yeah,
Even though we had 7 guys for different awards.
right. We
Which
should
is
change
allowed.
it so that at least 3 people get the award, and like 5 or 6 are nominated.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. I like that a lot. Well,
Perfect.
that's all we have for you guys today. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about on today's show?
I think that's it.
That's it. We'll be back next week with another episode of Pucks and Prosecco. I'm Meghan Angley. That is Chloe Theil. Thank you so much for watching today.